And we know that the Harmonious Choral,
yes,
they're taking part in
the World Choir Games, and that's going to happen in South Africa, Tshwane.
Tshwane.
Yes. Tshwane, July 4th to the
Tshwane.
14th. Tshwane. Yeah, 2018.
I see the spelling is like Tshwane.
Tshwane, yes, yeah. Yes. So the idea is to create an event like the Olympics, and which aim to peacefully unify people and nations connected by song in a fair competition. So the idea of the World Choir Games is based on the personal experience of choir singers from all over the world, and it's the first time on the African continent. And this is the 10th edition and 30 years of interculture of the World Choir Games, and this is what we celebrate in 2018. That the anniversary of the event is the world's largest international choir competition comes up with a premiere for the first time ever, and interculture will happen on the African continent.
Well, good morning to you, my good friend. You live in capital of Liberia, Monrovia, Randolph, and your wife Kathy, Randolph Halligan. Good morning to you. I hope that you're having some great time this morning. It's a holiday for us here, but I know that it's a busy day for you in Liberia. But in the meantime, though, we have to bring you up to speed because we told you the first half of the year has ended. At the beginning of the year, we brought you up to speed with how we can manage our finances. And this is what we want to do today.
Yes, so want to know, where have you been? Can you get back on track? And joining us in studio
is Frank Kwache, and Frank Kwache is the boss, CEO of Daffin Finance, taking us back to the basics of getting to know how prudent we need to manage our finances, and what better way, you know. The Vice President, Mahmoud Bawumia, keeps telling us that management of the economy is on track, etc. So we're hoping that personally we can also do the same. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
Roland. Happy holiday to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for trying to pass through the studio, because we know that you should be having a relaxing time with, with friends and family, but what can you do?
You can't say much.
Yes, but and I know that you've been working with people over the period, your customers and all that, and also observing yourself. Since you told us, do you think that we've been on track, even with the individuals that you've been meeting?
Yeah. Well, I'll say individuals, some have been on track, some have also not been on track, and there's a myriad of reasons why some have been on track. Those who have been on track, I'll say that, well, some kept at it and kept going, even though conditions were not very good for some of them, but they kept faith with it and they did it. And some who also were not able to do it were, for one reason or the other, as we always say, in life stuff do happen. Some might lose loved ones, some might have gone through some divorce, some might have gone through one calamity or flood or losing something, losing their jobs and other things. So, well, with those you cannot run away from, but you should be able to pick yourself up and move on, like I always say. The resilience with which you live life is what is relatively important.
Okay. Before we further personalize it, past 6 months, how has Ghana been doing?
Well, if you ask me, I would say it's a mixed bag, depending on individuals. Why do I say that? At the macro front, we will be hearing the government or the managers of the economy saying things are good because GDP is seeing some growth, interest rates, depending on where you sit, some will say it's sticky downwards, some will say it's come down. Inflation is a single digit now, some are happy about it. Some are not happy about the exchange rate. I mean, I think the first 5 months we saw some relative stability. Then all of a sudden in June there were blips all over the place, and everybody was asking what is going on in here. And I'll say that if you are asking me to market, I would say that from the macro front, I'll give them maybe a 7 and 7.5. But the macro should translate into the micro. What do I mean by that? As the economy is growing or the economy is becoming bigger, so to speak, people should benefit from it. And people should be seeing, when I say people should be benefiting from it, are we seeing jobs being created? Are people getting salary increases, or are they getting, bigger paycheck? Those are the things that other people will also want to look at. So that's what I would say. It's a mixed bag, depending on where you find yourself. If you didn't have a job, and all of a sudden you found yourself a job now, you will say that, well, your economy has changed because cash is coming through the door now. But if somebody is also, for argument's sake, not getting what he thinks he needs, then he's also going to say that things are not moved very well. So on the average, I would say that it's been good.
For the ordinary man, and especially sometimes predicated by what the media will report, inflation at the micro level becomes a great indicator as to how well the macro is being managed. And what are we talking about? When they go to the market, they have to gauge, or perhaps may have observed the trend, either upward or downward, the price of goods and services. It looks like the observation has not been consistent with what is at the top. Why?
Yeah, because I would say that, you see, when we talk about inflation, I always say that we are talking about a basket of goods. And there can be items in the basket which have seen some price reduction. Because, for instance, if you pick electricity tariffs, it's come down, but let's flip it. Those who buy gas have seen petrol prices going up. Those who bought vehicles have seen maybe fares change. So it's kind of like when you do the averages, you might not get the exact picture. And it also depends on where you live and your lifestyle. Some, well, a ball of kinky, the price hasn't changed. Maybe the size might be changing, so that person might be getting worried. Or that person maybe goes to the restaurant, prices might have changed relatively. So it depends on the individual. That's why when it comes to inflation, I always say that it's an average figure, because your inflation might be different from the other person's inflation because of how they live their lifestyle. That's why when they're doing the inflation, they always segregate it and say urban and rural. And even in the urban index, they have Accra, because a friend of mine told me that you live Accra by plan, because life in Accra might be different from life in, let's say, my father's village, somewhere in the eastern region.
But the reality is that we're talking the basics, managing what you have. You may be in the same job or have gotten a new one, but what you may have earned or you are earning is still the same. You may have had some plans at the beginning of the year, but the thing is that there should be some reasons why either you're keeping up or not keeping up.
Yeah. If you have the same job or you haven't changed jobs,
and the salary hasn't
changed, then your conditions haven't changed, so to speak. Relatively, depending on maybe where you live, you might have to do some adjustments, reducing maybe how much money that you have to spare. And as I always put it, on the average, we spend about 60% of our paycheck on our living expenses. That's paying your rent, food, other stuff that normally you do. So if your paycheck hasn't changed, then relatively, others would have changed. Because if you buy, let's say for argument's sake, where you live and where you go to work, fares have changed, then of course it means you need to jack up some of the monies or you reduce the amount of monies that you might have as spare money that you would have been saving. So it will change. But if you've changed jobs, and I always advise people that are changing jobs, that if you're going to change job and you're not going to get more than inflation, that's your benchmark. For instance, assuming I'm earning 100 Ghana cedis at maybe my joy, and I'm moving to my next job, and I'm not going to get 115 or 110, then there's no point. Because there's a likelihood that you change jobs, and within the next 1 year, you're not going to get any pay raise, or you're not going to get any money coming from anywhere. But relatively, maybe if you had stayed in your old job, things would have changed, and you would have caught up with where you are now, and also with the other benefits of maybe staying long in that organization. So for people who are going to change jobs, I always tell them that your benchmark should be minimum inflation. If you are not getting that, then don't move. There's no point.
How do you manage what you have then, relatively, knowing that you're in the same condition?
Yeah.
But of course, let's say the child that you have, that was a year old, is now 1.5. And then the lady you were dating is now at the point where the time you wanted to get married has gotten to, and so well, your expenditure.
It calls for some, I would say, the economists will say some austerity measures, like you have to cut down on certain things. And that's where the budgeting comes in. You look at what did you plan, and if you don't have a budget or you don't have any plan, it doesn't have to be very elaborate. I always maintain that if you don't really know where you are going, then anywhere is somewhere. So if you don't have a budget to start with, it's like you can't even measure, or you can't even know where your money is going and where you have to maybe make cuts. Because there are some things that I always say that it's nice to have, but it's not really, really important. So some of those things can be eliminated when you see that your conditions have been changed. For instance, if you are somebody who likes having fun and say every Friday I want to hang out with friends, you look at it that really, is this really important? I'm not saying don't hang out, but maybe the frequency with which you hang out, you might have to look at it and adjust. That's it. You see, you have to, when it comes to finances, it's like exercising. You know the benefits of exercising, but it's difficult. I tell people that every Saturday I go on a walk, about 5 kilometers, but it's not a pleasant thing. Getting up Saturday morning when everybody is sleeping and you just get out through the door and you have to do that walk. But you know that the benefit is entirely yours. Much the same way with investing and with saving. The benefit is entirely yours. But it's not easy making that decision, putting the money aside on a regular basis. That's what I would say.
Okay, so now if you've been reckless for the past 6 months with your money, how do you get back on track?
Yeah, you might have missed it somewhere along the line, or conditions have changed. For argument's sake, assuming that you were relatively rich and you are putting down 100 Ghana cedis every month, but you've now seen that 100 is not something that you can do. You can decide that, okay, what is a reasonable amount? Maybe 75 Ghana cedis. Let me scale it back and do 75 Ghana cedis, and then pick it up from there, rather than saying that I've given up. It's not working. No, you don't give up on investing. You don't give up on setting money aside, because life still goes on. Okay. So that's what I'll say to that.
Well, it seems like it's in the air and it's in the cloud. So if you could demonstrate for us so that we can actually get a visual picture of it.
Well, I will want your team to help me. Let's look at, I've got some little thing here. The first tab, investing, if they can show that one up. I'm going to be varying some numbers, so the yellow highlighted things, I will want them to vary it. For instance, I don't know whether they're showing it.
It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible, but we can just
yeah, for argument's sake, I mean, in the tabs that I have, you have 100 Ghana cedis somewhere as your money that you are putting. So yeah, that's it. You have the 100 Ghana cedis. The amount periodically you are setting aside. So for argument's sake, in this analogy, we are saying that for the 12 months, maybe when we started, you're going to put 100 Ghana cedis down. So at the end of the year, at interest rate of 10%, which is the minimum I would expect that you get from maybe a reasonable financial institution, you expect that you will be making 1,256. That is doing it periodically. But assuming that all of a sudden now...
And if you say the PV, just in case, so that...
you can hide that one, hide that one. So
should we?
Because, no, I mean, people will understand this one better than those finance things.
Yeah.
Finance people are very always complicated people trying
that's
to...
okay, that's okay. Okay,
so the initial amount was 0 because it started from ground 0. Now, periodic amount added was 100.
Okay.
The reason why I've made it minus is like it's going.
So if we're saying you're starting from ground 0, let's say the beginning of the month.
The beginning of the month. The beginning of the year, you have nothing.
Okay.
So January ending, you put 100 Ghana cedis out there. February ending, you put it out there. At the end of the year, we were expecting that if it was just at 10%, which is the minimum I would expect anybody to be able to earn, you were expecting to have 1,256. But now we're saying that things have changed. So we're going to vary this one to say that you had an initial amount now. For argument's sake, you were able to do maybe 600. You're able to do 600. So I'm going to change this one to say that we are now at the half year now.
Okay.
So you have here 600.
So, okay,
600 gets in here. A minus amount. Help me out.
Okay.
Minus 600. Enter. Now this one, we are now varying it. We're taking it down to 75 now.
Okay.
So it's going to be minus 75. We enter on that one. Interest rates haven't changed. That's why we keep it sticky.
Yeah.
Now we have 6 months to go.
And this rate is just the average rate?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Of which are the instruments?
Fixed deposits that you might get from any reasonable bank. You might be able, some would do maybe between 8 and other things. But my benchmark is if inflation is 9.7, 9.8, then I must get inflation. So that I don't lose out on anything. So I put here, now the period is now 6. Because 6 months has elapsed. So on entering that one, it means that at the same rate now, we've reduced the amount. Originally, we had 1,256, if you remember.
Yes.
So now we are saying that from where we are now, your conditions have changed.
Yes.
But you're not going to lose out entirely because you also reduce the amount of money now. So at the end of the year, if you do the 75 Ghana cedis, we expect that you end the year with 1,090. So that gives you an idea of, okay, it's not all lost. At least I can still have something with the reduced amount. That is the objective for showing this thing in here. So you don't give up entirely because if you put 0 in there, then nothing is really going to happen now. It means that what you have, and you don't go maybe after, assuming for argument's sake, you decide that, okay, I'm not even going to do the 75 now. I'm going to do 50. The amount is going to go down. But those who have gotten maybe pay raises and other things can also change it from 100 Ghana cedis and say that, okay, I'm not going to do 120 because I don't need all the extra money that I have now. And that would take it
to the next level.
So those are the, I mean, the dynamics involved.
The ordinary people, let's say, and I keep saying there are people who may not be doing formal work, but will be getting some money. Maybe they are taxi drivers or they do designs, or perhaps also maybe they sell at the market, etc. They don't have this fixed income, so they may assume that well, they can't get this at the end of the month. How do they get all this together?
Excellent question. What I say is that I'm going to use my organization because that's what I know of. There are calculators for those who want to do weekly. There are calculators who want to do bi-weekly. There are calculators for those who want to do even quarterly, that I know that I earn my money quarterly every 3 months. So the calculators are there and it varies, the period varies so that you are able to do it. But the beauty of it is that you keeping to what you have agreed. And then we are in the half year. You always have to go back and have a review with your financial advisor to find out where you are, because conditions would have changed. Like the example that I gave you, assuming that you were buying maybe Ghana cedi to the US dollar at 4.4, all of a sudden we're talking about maybe 4.6, 4.7. So conditions would have changed slightly. And then that's where you need to maybe look at it and tweak it to suit what the current conditions are. And in investment, there's one variable which is not constant. Interest rates will never be constant. It goes up and it goes down, depending on how the economy as a whole is going. Currently, we are in a downward trend, but in some 3 years back, it was on an upward trajectory where we got all the way up to about 25% per annum. And some were very happy at that. But it's come down now to, let's say, about half of it. So it simply means that your expectation, maybe 3 years ago, and current expectations are not going to be the same because the interest rate variable has changed.
Okay, so for those who can do the calculation the way you're doing it, maybe because they just don't have the knowledge or are semi-literate or illiterate at all, how do they do all that with the simple tradition?
Speak to an advisor.
Who? Somebody who is at, let's say, Mamobi Market. Which financial advisor?
Oh, there are myriad of, advisors. But I always say that check on the credibility of the advisor first. It's just the same way, like,
as in they can walk into any financial house.
They can walk into
just around.
They can walk into any financial house
and get that advice.
And the financial services industry are supposed to be able to help. Some might charge you, some might not charge you because they want you to maybe do business with you. But I believe that people have friends around. People know, gone were the days when we will say in the village where there's only one person who's gone to school. And even in that environment, when somebody gets a letter from somewhere, they always find somebody
back in the day
to decode whatever is in that letter to them. So speak to an advisor and be first and foremost check whether the advisor, one, has got the qualification to do that and is licensed to do that. Because it's just like how you will not go to any medical doctor when you don't even know where they work. When it comes to finances, attach the same caution and diligence. Because to be honest with you, there are a lot of scammers around there who promise you some return which are not reasonable. And you might get sucked up in there only to lose your,
Okay, so let's say there's somebody like that, maybe trading, could be plantain, or is a trader somewhere, buy wares from somewhere and comes to sell. May not have the knowledge Excel, but has consistent cash. But has a son who may have some knowledge like that. How can the person do? Because we have a board here, so perhaps maybe gets a weekly or a bi-weekly sum of 2,000 Ghana cedis from her trade. How do you think that person can manage?
I'll still come back to the calculator, but let's say my bi-weekly amount, you are talking about bi-weekly.
Agbobloshi trader.
I always make it simple for people to be able to understand. So I'll start with, let's say, 100.
Okay.
Bi-weekly you get 100. So on the average, it means that we are talking about, let's use 4 weeks. 4 weeks in a month on the average. So we are talking about, it translates into, let's say, 200 every month. So if you have 200 every month now, the next thing we are asking is how long do you want to put this money aside? Finance people talk about horizon or tenor, or for argument's sake. And because half of the year is gone. So we are talking about, let's say, 6 months. And this 6 months, if we use the same bi-weekly thing, we're talking about 26 weeks. 26, you have 26 weeks now in here, so it's going to be 13 bi-weekly. Interest rates is also key in here. I'm using the minimum. Because currently treasury bills, which is the risk-free, is hovering around 13%. But you might not likely get the reason why people will advise you to do a fixed deposit is that you can maybe have your money immediately. Compared to maybe treasury bills where they will tell you that they'll have to go and rediscount it and all the terms that goes with it. So let's say another 10% for argument's sake. Now with this ones now, you have the amount, you have the tenor that you want to go to, because this is key. Your horizon, somebody will not be able to do the 6 months. Somebody will say, I want to just do 3 months. Somebody will say, I don't need this money. for the next maybe 18 months.
Yeah.
So this is a key variable, and in most cases, it's the tenor that determines the interest rates that you will get. The longer the tenor, the higher the interest rates that you get, because presumably the longer the tenor, the higher the risk, and the higher the risk, the higher the return. So that's what you build it in there. Then what we'll be looking at for, what is my amount on maturity? So if I plug these ones into our calculator there, we should be able to come up with an amount.
Okay, but if you want to see it, you can see it. But just in case, perhaps we want to move on and try to get some perspective on where they have to put this. So this 100 they get every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks, yeah.
Where do they put it?
You can walk into a financial institution,
so
and you can say you want to put it into, I know now there are a lot of what I call investment instruments.
Okay.
But some investments, and that's what I need to maybe clarify, some investments cannot guarantee a rate, especially with what we call the equities or the stock markets. Because the return on the stock market,
those are out.
It goes.
It's a long term.
Yeah, and it's a long term thing. And it varies. Depends on the performance of the companies on the stock market. But the other side, which we call the fixed income, you are told a rate from the beginning that this is the amount of money that your return is going to be. So with a fixed income, you can go into this one. And you walk into any bank, you walk into a financial institution, and you say you want to do a weekly amount of money. I mean, I know some financial institutions even ask people to do, top up of their treasury bills. Some financial institutions are doing it now. It means that, and treasury bills are sold every week.
And you can top up your what you put in.
You can go top up because they have instruments.
You
can top it up.
The initial investment.
That's what I showed in that.
So every 2 weeks you can just go.
You can go in there,
and then they'll add it up.
They'll add it up because it's like
it's not as if they're starting a new.
No. What they will do is that they will be buying more, but you are not guaranteed the same interest rates. So it's going to be an average of interest rates, because the interest rates that you have, for argument's sake, what is coming out today will not be the same rates which came up 2 weeks ago. So it means that you're going to have a series of investments with them. But on the average, you'll be having maybe the rates that had pertained maybe in the year. So at the end of the day, the investments is ongoing every now and then. So that's what I want people to be looking at. It's just like having a retirement scheme or a pension scheme or whatever it is. Every month, money is added up to it, but it's invested at different rates. It's not at the same rate, but it keeps adding up, and at the end of the year, maybe the aggregate is found, and the total amount that you have earned is put into something else.
All right. Okay, so we're going to open the phone lines to just find out what questions people have for you, Mr. Kwachi. So the phone lines are on your screens right now, and
so you can call in, and the numbers will be on your screens very soon. Please call in and let us know what you think about what we've been doing right here. Just that sort of education given to us by Mr. Kwachi, and the numbers are
0302-211-691 or 0302-211-692. So call in with all your finance questions.
So just that we keep up to speed with what is latest and what is not. But if we have to do some medium to long term thinking around what's supposed to be invested, often I know those who have fixed income, they may have some difficulties along the line, and so may overdraw. Well, I'm not saying maybe not overdraw, but maybe may just have some difficulties, and so we'll go and withdraw before
the time.
Breaking
the
cycle.
Yeah,
maybe within a 2-month period or 3 months, and if that's consistent, how do they reconcile that whole transaction over the period?
You see, when you go and break your investments, there are penalties. I mean, in most cases, because what you, so to speak, is that you haven't kept to the contracts that you agreed originally at. And the biggest of the penalties are that you're going to lose part of the interest.
Okay.
And the worst form of it is that the person will say, okay, then you haven't earned that interest at all. I'm not going to give that interest to you. But your principal, you should be able to get it if it's in fixed income.
Okay.
So the beauty of fixed incomes are that you are guaranteed a rate. So you know that when you miss out, you've missed out on those returns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are able to pick yourself up again and you go back into restarting it, then the only thing that, or the only risk that you have is you might not be guaranteed the same interest rates because interest rates would have changed.
Okay.
So that is the only risk I say when you're doing fixed income and you miss it. But you should be able to go back. And in current terms, I'm not sure we're going to see any significant change. What I talk about significant is like rates moving, investment rates moving like 10% down.
All right.
It's not going to happen.
All right. Because we're in Ghana.
Yeah. So let's go to Takoradi. Good morning, Hassan Aramayao.
Good morning.
All right, your question, please.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a question, but I really want to thank you for this special program. You know, it helps a lot. It puts an impact in the youth. But I have a little money in my MTN mobile money. Let's say about 3,000. I'm not settled with what I will use this money for. But I really watched this program. In fact, I just tuned in and I saw the discussion and then the workings on the board. I really wanted an advice.
Okay.
To what to do with my money for now, in a short time at all. Let's say in the last one, because for now I'm not settled with the type of business I'll do.
Hassan.
I was doing my own business and it collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the part in which I was using it, I'm not gaining. And I'm really losing my capital because it was a capital and it kept going down without any profit. So I decided to withdraw. And after I've withdrawn, that is what I am spending. So I'm scared to lose it. If I lose it, I will entirely lose everything.
Okay, Hassan.
Yes.
I get the understanding. You said that you started a business, but you were not making enough as by way of margins.
Not at all.
Okay, so you decided to withdraw the investments.
Yes, I don't make any profit at the end of it all.
And then you are saying that, now you have gotten your initial principal, but it looks like you are living on it. You're spending it.
Yeah, actually, it's not longer my principal because the principal has withdrawn. That's it.
Okay. All right. So you want advice on how you can invest what is remaining?
Exactly. So that at least in a short time I will be able to earn something a lot.
All right. You've gotten his one. Let's take also from Monica. Monica has been on the line for some time, and Monica is calling us from Boko.
Good morning, Monica.
Good morning.
All right. Your question for Mr. Kwache.
Please, mine is about the investment also. I invest with a certain company. At the end of the year, I get only 500 Ghana cedis. A month is about 100 cedis. I don't know whether I should continue. And then also, there is this women thing called we do, like 6 people can come together, contribute, and give it at the end of the month, we give it to somebody. I don't know how that one also helps. And then that diagram he was demonstrating, I didn't tune in early, though, but I wanted much about it. I want to know much about it. And then if you are a salary earner, how do you go about, how do you do with that diagram he was talking of?
It's not a diagram. It's a calculation. I know. Sometimes the way we feel about mathematics, not everybody does though. Yeah. But thank you very much, Monica. We have Bismarck, but we won't take Bismarck. Bismarck, please just hold on. Answer the first question.
Yeah, the first question, it depends on what type of business he went into, because I cannot just sit and say that this business is right or this business is wrong. So, but once he's taken hold of his money and the money is not invested, of course, I say it's this with all the caution that you'll be spending the money that you have.
I think what he needs is, right now, he's living on what he's, so I think he needs a quick saving. A quick haven where he can play, just keep it there.
Yeah, a quick haven depends on how much money he's even looking to take away on a monthly basis. Because if I tell him that go to maybe a bank or go to an asset management company, I give an argument, say, okay, go and put the money there and they'll guarantee you an annual rate of 13%. Mind you, 13% means maybe he has to leave the money with them for 1 year or maybe for, 3 months. But he might be needing to be taking money every month. So it varies from institution to institution. So that is why he needs to go to, depending on where he finds himself. Okay. He needs to go and speak to an advisor, but he can get some investment. And the minimum he should be looking out for is to get 10% on it.
And Monica? Monica has, it says she has one investment, monthly deduction, or perhaps maybe investment of 100 Ghana. Yeah. But what the markup will
that's what I don't
or
know,
the return will be
she gets 500.
And
I don't know the base or the amount of money that she's putting, or
she says 100 a month.
100
and at the end of the 12-month cycle, she's going to make a return of only 500 Ghana cedis on what she's invested.
Well, I need to be able to wrap my head
I think it's
around.
almost like just...
Yeah, but it's more like she will need to be able to tell or find out what is the interest rate. Because you see, you have to compare the interest rates around. For argument's sake, average interest rate for 1 year investment is like about 15%. So if anybody promises you like 50%, they must know that you are in for what? A higher risk.
Yeah.
You might lose all your money entirely. But if somebody also rates are about 15% and somebody says, I'm going to give you 5%, you must know that the person might be taking a woeful advantage of you. To say that.
So it's a chicken and egg situation.
It's a chicken and egg
you have
situation.
to make the decision.
You have to make the decision.
What would you advise? You go for 50%, which is around, it's not official, but it's around these days. We have peer-to-peer investments.
People, I always say that in this world, there will always be some people who will be driven by greed. They want to earn more. Some will even promise that I'll give you 100%, and you will have some going for it. And they will lose out, and then they will cry in the end and say that, well, somebody should have advised them.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to Bismarck. Good morning, Bismarck. Bismarck, good morning.
Well.
Okay, we seem to have lost Bismarck.
But we have someone.
Good morning, madam. How are you doing, people?
Oh, thank you so much, Bismarck. So your question, please.
Yeah, in fact, some of us are benefiting from your discussion this very much. And
Bismarck was calling from Seshi. Seshi, that would be in the western region. Sorry for the drop in the line, but we have...
We've got Richard Debra from Kofirada.
Yeah.
Good morning, Richard.
Yeah, please, I would like to... I'm a student, and someone dashed me 1,500 Ghana cedis. And I don't know what to do with it, so I was just asking, maybe I'll invest in it. What type of investment will be good for me? That's my question.
He has 1,500, doesn't want to go and buy a mobile phone or some nice trainers or something.
For Lydia, I think you might have some banks around, you might have some finance houses around. You can walk to any of them. But be advised about, first and foremost, find out whether where you're taking your money to is duly regulated and is duly licensed. And the rates that they are proffering to you, you should not be expecting a rate for, if it's a 1 year investment, don't be expecting a rate more than maybe 15, 16%. That's my advice to you.
Okay, so we have Akimoda, we have...
Kwame Atifua. Good morning, Kwame.
Good morning, madam. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. So your question...
I'm also here, Kwame. It's not only madam.
No, Kwame doesn't want to mind you. So, Kwame, your question, please.
Yeah, you asked the gentleman about what Ghana has been doing for the past. I didn't get the answer.
Please again, we also didn't get you.
So basically,
also I want to know, when prices of petroleum increase, we feel it, but when they are reduced, we don't enjoy the resources.
Petrol.
Well, that has to do more with what the managers of the economy, and I cannot say much about what the managers of the economy
You're not
say.
the finance minister.
But by and large, what I would say is that it depends on where you find yourself, because if you find yourself in Accra, maybe you might say that your conditions of service might have changed because maybe fares have gone up. But if somebody is also living somewhere in the village and he doesn't need any transportation or any other thing, relatively that person will tell you that, well, he doesn't see much about the fares. The only thing he might say is that maybe things that he is selling or she is selling, now she needs to maybe, the prices might have gone up. But it depends on where you find yourself. So by and large, I would say that the economy will be good for some people as we speak now. And some people will also be saying that no, they don't think that things have. All
right, so let's go to Ho, and Francis is on the line. Good morning, Francis.
Yeah, formally I own my own stuff, but things are getting out of hand for me now, and the lease I am having now is 5,000. I don't know what to do with it, but I need advice. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a call too before.
All right, so let's go to Takoradi. Good morning, Echo.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, your question, please.
Yeah, Roland, I want to, sometimes they depend on the initial capital. Maybe if you are doing 100 Ghana, it depends the interest that they're going to give you. If you're going to do 50 Ghana, it depends. And according to your partner, your man, he said if a good customer will give you maybe a good customer will give you maybe 15 if you're doing for a year, you understand? But if you're going to top up maybe every month, and he said it's going to depend because the interest rate is flat rate, and you are not going to get the same interest rate from the beginning. So how is it going to be calculated? Have you got my point?
Yeah, we've gotten the point.
Yeah,
So
I get your point. What is going to happen is that today maybe interest rate is 15%. So the money that you walk in today, you get the 15%. But in a month's time, if you walk in there with, let's say, for argument's sake, another 100 Ghana cedis, and rates are not 15%, there's no way any serious investment company will say that I'm going to give you the same 15%. It's not practicable.
Okay, so what he's asking is, you're saying that perhaps you can make you start with the deduction of 500.
Yeah.
Every month you put in the 500, but it's a top up. You're saying that there are instruments or there are products.
There are products there.
Now he's saying that what then will be the rate initially when at 12% the first month it becomes, let's say, averagely across the board.
Averagely now, like I'm just saying that averagely now rates are about between 10 to 13% on like a 3 months paper.
Yeah, he's asking how is that going to be calculated for the initial one which are lower.
There are calculators all over the place. Okay. I mean, in the world of finance, I don't want to sound mathematical, but I mean, if you've had anybody who studied mathematics, there's something we call series and progressions. I mean, everything can be worked out mathematically. That's why there are calculators now. And thankfully, there is Excel now. All the things can be modeled out in Excel.
It makes it easier.
And it makes it easier. And you should, I mean, the person who's advising you will have to be transparent to you and tell you that this is the amount that is going to happen.
I think we can also add that you also need to be speaking regularly to who your clients are.
Which is key.
So that you also get a key understanding and get a buy-in of what is going on.
I recommend that annually, I mean, for maybe want of time, at least you need to see your advisor once a year because conditions would have changed.
Okay.
And that's why budgets or everything that has to do with finances is predicated on, let's say, annual budgets or whatever it is because conditions change annually.
All right. Okay, so let's go to Tamale. Good morning, Abdul Karim.
Morning.
Yes, so can we please have your question?
Please, we are a group of 6 salary workers. So we make it a point that every man will contribute 500 and give it to one person. Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, round robin. We know that, yeah.
And give it to one person. So I want to know how helpful is that one? Or if there's another advice that you can give us to invest in a different way.
I don't know. Let's take the second one.
A question of that sort.
Yeah, let's take the second one.
Okay, let's go to Takwa. Good morning, Mohammed Nuruddin.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, may we please have your question?
Yes. Please, my question is. Good morning. Please, my question is. I open an account every month. I withdraw all my money, then I left 100 Ghana in my account. My account is saving, and I was expecting that every month they will give me something like, but rather every month they share me 50% every month. They don't give anything. They only share my account.
Okay.
I don't know
which account. Which type of account is it? Savings account.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let me take the first one, and then I'll come to the second one.
Yeah.
The contributions are good, but they are as strong as the people within the group. If one person, there's this saying that the team is as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah.
So if one person breaks up, or it breaks up at the weakest link, then it means that the whole thing breaks up.
I think what the person is saying, what do they do? Is it
if you take your 500, it varies from individual to individual. Somebody takes his 500, he wants to go and buy something. That's why he's in the group. But if you don't have any immediate use for the money, walk to a financial institution and ask that you want to maybe put that money down there for maybe 3 months, so that every time you get your money, you can always go and top it up in one way or the other. And as I've been saying, the more or the consistency with which you attach to your investment determines the amount of money that you have, all things being equal.
So you're saying that you can be in there, but when you take your share, then you have to quickly go. Once you continue your contribution.
Okay. Right. And then the other one has to do with, I think the man was talking about keeping money in an account.
Yes.
Of course, if it's in an account.
He kept money in the account. He went to do the withdrawal, left 100 Ghana cedis.
Savings.
But he saw that only 3% is deducted every month.
Let me just be honest with you. Financial services are expensive because the banks run on technology and it's not cheap. I'll say that they also buy expertise from people. So if you're just keeping the minimum balance in an account, of course the bank will take some charges on it.
Well, back in the day, we used to hear somebody may have died some years ago, and then 10 years down the lane, you find that their 1 Ghana cedi at the time in 1981 by 1990 had increased.
Savings.
But this is rather savings, rather.
Yes, because there are bank charges, and it's everywhere. It's not only maybe in Ghana, in overseas and other things, you pay periodic charges.
So you're saying that's the reason?
That's the reason.
Okay.
So the banks will take charges.
All right. So let's go to Cape Coast. Amadu Simon, good morning.
Good.
All right. So we lost Amadu Simon. Suleiman from Yendi, good morning.
Morning, madam.
Yes, your question, please.
Okay, please. I am interested in whatever you are saying, but I am a government worker and a first-time investor, and I have no money. Can I take a bank loan, let's say 10,000 to invest? So that's what I want to know.
Okay. You want to take at which percent? What would be the interest?
I want to talk to my banker to see whether I can get 10,000, and when I get it, where will I invest it?
Okay, we've got to
invest it.
Let's take the next one.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sulumana. Samuel Asante from Kumasi. Good morning, Samuel.
Good morning, Samuel. Samuel, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Please, your contribution. You have a question, you can still ask. Oh, someone seems to be watching the TV, yeah.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning,
continue,
Samuel.
Continue, Samuel. Samuel, we're not chanting. Please continue.
My question is, I'm following your program, and what I wanted to find out from the... Okay, my question is that I wanted to find out from the gentleman, if you want to invest in investment, I want to know the short term, the long term, and medium term. Which one will be appropriate to as you want to do investment? The short term and the medium term. Which one is appropriate?
Well, we've gotten your drift.
Okay. The first one has to do with the gentleman who says he's going to take a loan.
He's asking if it's advisable.
It's I would say that if it's a bank loan, it's not advisable.
Okay.
But if it's a loan from your employer which is interest-free, then I'll say maybe you can go for that one. So it all comes down to the interest rate, because I'm not sure a bank will give you a loan.
Employers give loans?
Some employers do give, interest-free loans. So if you think that maybe you are not able to invest, you can take the chunk amount and invest it. But it comes down to if the rate is zero. Because if the rate is not zero, then you're going to lose out.
What if the market rate, average market rate, is between 12 and 10%, but your employer is giving it to you at 2% or 5%?
Okay, well, that's what I mean. That's what we talk about in finance. We're talking about the realm of arbitrage. It's like you're taking it at 2 and you are selling it at 10. So you make a return of 8.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So
then the
last one.
The last one was talking about what? Short term, medium term.
Which advice would you give for which instruments?
It depends on your needs. But relatively, the long term, we will say look at the stock market, because that is for the long term. But for the short and medium term, look at fixed income like bonds or treasury bills or fixed deposits to be able to, go around it in that form.
Okay, so we want to wrap up. And before Maps comes in, I have this one from somebody who does his own work, is a tailor, but says that averagely has demands from the parents. And so he works, I think averagely makes around 200 Ghana or sometimes even 500 Ghana a week, but keeps giving it out for welfare activities. Now, what I want to know, what behavior, or what posture of behavior should that person put up to make sure that you don't keep giving out while you know that you have to perhaps invest or save for the long term?
Yeah, what I would say is that if it is critical, like taking care of family, feeding them, and other things, you cannot renege on those responsibilities. But where it is for frivolous things, because I mean, we live in an environment where you have people come to you and say, oh, can you lend me some money, or can you give me some money? For what reason? Maybe he's going to spend it on his lifestyle and other things. That one I would say no. But you must also make it a conscious effort that you cannot give all your earnings out, because on the rainy day, nobody's going to come to your aid when you haven't made up that investment yourself. At least you must set some money aside for what I call the emergency fund. Keep a little money somewhere so that you can fall on that in the day of need. That's what I'll say.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Frank Kwachi, for that education. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
learned
really
a lot.
enjoyed it.
And now I know where to put my money, to take out my money, what to stop. You know, I should stop buying nice, pretty shoes. You know.
Well.
Yeah.
Can you stop?
I can.
Right?
I can.
Okay.
And I will.
Perhaps we have to ask Mr. Kwachi whether it's important we stop buying pizzas and, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was
buying pizzas and buying lots of items for children, and say that perhaps maybe instead of buying 100 Ghana cedi worth of clothing a month for children, maybe you take it at 200.
Well, that's
you take it at 20 Ghana.
You take it down. You have to make that conscious effort to know that the future
is more important.
It's more important than the now.
Yeah.
All right.
So we have to save and invest. And I always maintain that there's a difference between saving and investing. Saving is like you're just preserving the money. Investing, you're taking a little risk, but the risk must be guided.
Guided.
Okay.
That's conservative.
Okay.
Not peer-to-peer. It's around a lot. All right, so for all the things that we have to talk about, we know that you've enjoyed the conversation, especially knowing or gauging that through the calls that have come in. Many of you have some principle somewhere or some money chopped somewhere. You just don't know how to make use of it, and you're living on that money. I guess this has been the platform for you to get the best of investment advice.
Once again, we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Frank Kwachi for that education. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. CEO of Daffin Finance. Always here, present with us, beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of the year, definitely we're going to bring him to assess our state of being as far as managing our finances.